looking at the rear passenger brake assembly. What I'm attempting to figure out, remember, whatever, is which way I turn from the back with the brake adjusting tool, sometimes called a brake spoon. Which way do I turn this star wheel to expand the shoes? So I'm looking at this thread. It looks to me like a normal thread. In other words, in order to collapse, I would rotate it, if you were looking from the rear of the car, clockwise, like a normal right-hand screw. And in order to expand the shoe, then I would be rotating it counterclockwise. If I'm working on the inside, that means then that the brake adjusting tool is pushing down on the back of the star wheel and rotating it thus counterclockwise. And I do know that the front passenger is the same direction, and then the driver's side is opposite. So in other words, on the driver's side, in order to expand the shoe, I'd be turning the star wheel clockwise. Thus, clockwise is down on the star wheel from the back, whereas, as I mentioned before, this too was also down. Interesting. So I guess because of the way it's handed, both sides, you would push the star wheel down to expand it. I'll have to think more on that. So I just drained the oil and filled the new oil filter and attached it to the rear of the engine on the oil adapter. And yeah, 9 to 15 foot-pounds. So that's more than I would have expected, but that's just the way that works. So there is the oil filter, the new one on there. Kind of nice having access through the door like that. That helped. I had my torque wrench out and tightened that up. I need to refill what I have. This was the condition of the oil that was in the engine for 30-some years. Yeah, it's dark, but it's not bad. Fresh oil, Rotella 1030. It's going in. One of the tricks is to put a grocery bag around the outside of the oil filter before you loosen that bolt that holds it to the adapter. That way, anything that drips out does not drip on the engine or the floor. It goes into the bag. This vent moves, but just barely, so we need to help it. The other thing I want to lubricate would be the door here for the heater. Oh, this one actually, it's not, screw's not tightened down here at the base, so that's why it moves now. But yeah, I need to work on that. And the same thing over on the other side. So I've got my deep creep. So over on this side, I need to remove the grill over that duct to get access to where I'm spraying it. This far left lever for defrost, when you pull it, is supposed to close those. It closes one side. I can't figure out, it must be broken because it, I see what the problem is. This has pulled out of the retainer. Maybe the retainer broke Well, it looks like it's there. All right, so it's a matter of loosening the screw, sticking that back in under the retainer, and making it line up with the other one when it's in this fully off position. So easy peasy. And I don't know if you can see, but the sheathing, the rigid part of this cable, it's got a steel rod down the side, the inside, a hard wire. Anyway, I got it in the best position I can come up with. That is full open for heat. Now, if I push it down for defrost, that is as far as I can get it. We're going to live with that. And that has to do with the fact that if I move the sheathing any farther, which would be what I would want to do, away from me, there's nothing to clamp to. And the other side, that's full on defrost, which is good. It just means that heat won't be as much. While I was in here looking, I went ahead and the air, which is the center lever, has been disabled. And then this one here, which controls the heat. Well, suffice it to say that it works. I can push this lever and I can get the wire to move where it needs to move to turn on heat coming from the back. Now, I don't know. I guess now is an okay time to check and see if I have a working fan. Let's get the keys. All right, key is on. We do not have a fan noise. That is definitely hooked up. So I guess I'll be climbing underneath the car and tapping on the fan motor. I guess one thing I can check, and that is to make sure that we've got 12 volts coming in and that we have continuity through the switch. So I'll pull back the connector that goes into the switch body here and check it for 12 volts, and then check continuity across the contacts of the switch. All right, here is the, well, here is the heater wiring diagram. And if we look at this and attempt to find the three-way switch, this is the switch right here. All right, I know coming in there was a red wire. I'll bring you back when I figure this out. So unfortunately, I cannot find agreement in the manual here in terms of the wiring diagram. So I really don't know how this switch is supposed to be wired up, other than I know that red coming in, right here is the switch sitting in the car, the front being towards the top of the screen here. Red comes in at this bottom right hand terminal. Red is the only hot. In looking at the manual here, it appears that the black wire goes to the actual fan. So right now I'm going to connect the negative of my meter, and it's set for sound. Okay, so I have continuity there. The switch now would be in the high, so I have to have electricity going through this switch. Nothing on that. Nothing on that. So it appears that the switch is bad. I'm going to try to find, I can put it in the medium position, the halfway. Nothing. Still check, I've got something there. I've got nothing there. Got nothing there. So sitting for 30 years had an impact on this switch. So I've bent back the tangs on this. I think it's enough to get it off. All right, so we have, there we go, we have contacts here. I'll clean those up. This moves and is supposed to bring continuity across here. I'll clean that up, then we'll see what happens. This is the other part of it, so as you rotate the switch, that slides along there, moving where this piece makes contact on this piece. Let's see what we get. I cleaned both of the conductive pieces on the back of that little circuit board, and also cleaned the tangs of where the connector goes into. And then I applied some dielectric grease to the contacts, and now I have my ohmmeter here attached to what is red. And so right now, again, just to confirm, we're in the off position. So at this point, none of these should be making a connection. So I shouldn't be getting any other than, yeah, if I touch that one coming in. So now if we move it to the first position and we touch here, we got nothing. We've got something there. Nothing down there. Go into the second position. Now the top contact, top tang, and the second tang are good. Still nothing on the bottom. Go to the high position. Got something there, nothing there, and finally that one comes into play. So hopefully we fix the switch. So it doesn't sound like it's running on low, but because it runs well on high, I'm going to call it a success. And it seems to be still running on medium. All right, moving along, we'll put all this back together. So while I was under the dash, I kind of tweaked the switch for the turn signal, the blinkers. Now I have that, and the other way. I don't have a light bulb, but I do have a blinky thing there. And let's see if it's blinking in the back. Yeah, so it just appears that the light bulb is bad. So I used the generous gift certificates that I got from the NECC, Brian O'Neill in particular, and made a purchase from Clark's. So we'll do an unboxing here. So we have two flexible hoses. This one goes on one side from the heater from the heater box to the engine. And then the smaller one is the defroster hose that runs up from the heater vent area around to the defroster vent coming out of the ceiling. So we've got the heater hose ready to go in. That's one end in there coming out of the engine, and then the other end is, yeah, it's way back up in there. So we'll put that together and bring you back when it's done. So that was not easy. You can see back up in there. I had to take off the starter. Obviously remove this rear left wheel. I had to straighten out the flange. It had gotten a dent in it. Then I greased the outside of the tube up there. And that was able to, and then I was able to slip the end of the hose on and rotate it, get it into position. The trick to getting, or at least for me, the trick to getting that clamp was a very long, there it is, a very long screwdriver, so long I can't get it in the camera. And then coming up through here until I was able to engage it with the slot and then crank it down. So now I will put the starter back on. So now I'll put the starter back on. One of the things I discovered was that I was missing the two bolts here, the other side. So dug through my stash and got those and installed them. Not sure how they got forgotten. So everything is back together. Let's see, where did I end off before? Okay, so I said I was going to put the starter on. Well, in order to put the starter on, I had to remove this throttle rod. Not a big deal. It's just an E-clip down there at the transmission and then up into the engine compartment. So I pulled that out of the way. That allowed me to be able to snake the starter up between the axle and the newly installed heating hose. And once that was in, then I went ahead and hooked up the leads to the solenoid, and then I cut to length the heater hose. I had to cut off about 1.5 inches or so, but I tried to strategically place, I don't know if you can see it here, strategically place the main battery lead to the solenoid such that it's holding this heater hose off, because in some cases the heater hose will contact that stud coming off the solenoid and actually will rub through and short out on the wire. Other thing I did to try to prevent that from ever happening in the future is I've got the zip tie on here holding this hose. I left it extra long in hopes that I can kind of just keep it jammed up out of the way. So that project is finished.